Observe the movements of respiration. If we follow any other path, for example, trying to meditate upon some shape, then the respiration works as an impediment. And then the mind will be disturbed from the object of meditation. That's the reason why he asked us to meditate upon the activity of respiration. These are the minor obstacles. A continuous practice of the utterance of Om makes you overcome the various types of obstacles. And then about your psychological traits, you should be able to practice something. For example, happiness, unhappiness, good behavior, bad behavior, the quality of making friendship, the nature to pity others, the capacity to be pleased,
It's the brain, sir.
the nature of not caring for things and persons. Such things will be there in our psychological setup. These are only a few examples that commonly exist in the psychological setup of everyone. How to make use of these things? It is your duty to see that they do not come in your way of yoga practice. And if there are undesirable traits, you should find how they should be neutralized. If there are desirable traits, you should see that they are made better use of. And then he gives us a specific process of tackling with them. The process is called by him as a process of linking up. You should be able to link each of them to a proper counterpart. You observe what you are doing with the plug and the plug pin. The plug and the plug pin are two separate counterparts of the same machine. Similarly, to every psychological trait you are having in you, there will be a necessary counterpart in the other fellow who meets you or whom you meet. It may be your wife or husband. It may be your neighbor or friend. But you should be able to link up properly. If you make a proper connection of the plug with the pin, you can make the electricity flow and use it in the required manner. But if we make wrong connections, we may create bad results. Sometimes the fuses may go. Sometimes there may be some sparks. Sometimes the insulation may burn. Like that, there will be enmities between two people, misunderstandings between two persons. When the connections are not properly done, we have such sparks coming out. For example, scandalizing other people behind their back, utter dislike towards some fellow. These are the inevitable results when we do not know how to make a link up. For example, he says, if you have a good quality of making friendship in you, you find anyone who is very happy, you link up your friendly attitude to his happiness. Suppose you make a wrong connection. That is, if you link up your carelessness with a happy person, you will have unhappiness, because you will have one more person who is hostile to you. Whenever you make a wrong connection, you will have another person who is not pleased with you, and another person whom you do not like. Therefore, he disturbs your psychological setup. there is a person who is having some serious unhappiness. If you have a quality called pity, you link them up. Begin to sympathize. Then you have made a right connection with him. If you make a wrong connection, that is, without any sympathy, if you begin to make friendship with him, you will expect that he should do something for you. Whereas he is in a helpless state. And you will be disappointed. And sometimes you will misunderstand him. And you may think that he is careless. And then he will understand you as cold and heartless and callous. Once again, you have another enemy outside. So, make a proper connection. If there is a fellow having very good behavior in his life, practicing yoga with a greater perfection than what you are doing, if you have the capacity to be pleased with anyone, you will be pleased by his good behavior. Then automatically you will be benefited by practicing the ways as far as they are required. But instead of doing this, suppose you link up your carelessness with his good behavior. That amounts to brutal nature and sometimes jealousy and carelessness. And you have another good fellow as your enemy. So, be careful in making connections. And if there is a fellow having horrible behavior, if you have a trait of carelessness in you, you link yourself with him with that aspect. You have no business to care about his behavior. Now you are the least affected by the fellow. If not, suppose you are angry with the bad behavior of the fellow. Suppose you dislike him. You will be meditating him night and day. That is, meditating dislike, meditating upon hatred, and meditating upon bad behavior. So you are inviting three undesirable things into yourself. Simply because you are hating the bad behavior of a bad person, you are inclined to talk of him and criticize him again and again. And unnoticed, you are meditating upon him. So try to care to link up properly with others. So have right relations with others. This is the next step we are asked to take. This is a very subtle and delicate aspect, which means much in the world. If we do not care for this aspect, there will be a dead end of our practice because of our jealousy or hatred, or because of our anger, because of our dislike. Some beastly instinct begins to take hold of us. He stands on our way, and we stop yoga forever unless we care for the art of linking up with others. And the next aspect we are asked to practice is the eightfold yoga practice. That is, the 8 steps of yoga practice. The 8 steps I think you know, but once again let us try to enumerate them. The first is called Yama, that is regulation of our habits. The second is called Niyama, rectification of our habits. The third is Asana. We will come to it later. But for the time being, you know something of asanas. Understand it as that. This is called stability and ease. That is what Patanjali defines by asana. A little bit of explanation is required, which we will come to later. Fourth, That is regulation of pulsation. Sometimes it is translated as controlling the breath, but it is awfully incorrect to translate it like that. Pranayama is not an experiment with the breath, it is an experiment with the pulsations, which results in an automatic suspension of breath. We will come to it later. The next is called, the word means absorption.
Absorbeert.
That is, when the mind is being dispersed into the outer objects, you should be able to absorb it again from the environment into the senses, from the senses into the mind,
Yes.
from the mind into yourself. This process is called pratyahara or absorption. The sixth is called dharana, which can be translated as contemplation. 7. Dhyana, meditation. Samadhi can be translated as attainment. These are the 8 steps of the yoga practice. Because of these 8 steps, it is called the eightfold path of yoga. In Sanskrit, it is called Ashtanga Yoga. Ashta means 8. Anga means parts. Ashtanga means 8 parts. The whole process of yoga practice includes 8 parts. We have to understand each of it separately. And the English equivalents given are according to my own system of translation. I hold responsible in the accuracy or otherwise of the translation. You may find different terms of translation in some other books, but according to my conviction and belief, these are the English equivalents. Let us take the first step called yama. It indicates the following aspects. The first is called tapas.
Eerste noemen tapas.
Wrongly translated as austerity, penance, like that. But defined in the scriptures as the proper use of thought, word and deed. A positive way of using our thoughts. Thinking only useful and positive about others, so that our thought may be useful to either ourselves or others. Similarly, speaking meaningfully, so that our conversations may help or encourage others, or help ourselves when we approach a man who is greater than ourselves. If we have the way of conducting conversation, we will be automatically benefited by his wisdom, because we begin to know what he knows, and then what we do should be useful either to others or to ourselves. This is called the threefold use of tapas. Finally, it is defined like this: one who does not create to the mind of anyone around himself by his thought, word and deed, and the one who does not receive any jerk by the thought, word and deed of others around himself, is said to be a man of tapas. I repeat once again. Your thought or word or deed should not create any jerk or inconvenience to anyone around you. And the thought, word or deed of anyone around you, however inconvenient it is, however dangerous or harmful it is, should not create any effect upon you, then it is said tapas. This should be practiced. The second aspect is no good of practicing yoga and say that the scriptures are false. Without scriptures, we are nowhere. So, you are expected to read a sentence or two or three from the scriptures daily and galvanize your mind with the significance of it. This should be one of the daily duties. Total surrender to the Lord.
On hearing
That is already given.
of the states to hear.
That is the art of uttering the sacred word Om. That should be daily practiced. And these three aspects put together are called yoga in action. In Sanskrit, it is called
In Sanskrit, you will hear yoga.
Kriya Yoga. When you practice these things uniformly, you are said to be following the Kriya Yoga according to Patanjali and according to the scriptures. This is the definition of Kriya Yoga. By doing so, you will be able to understand what the eighth step is. Otherwise, it remains only as a technical term. Because it is not the meaning of the word that we want, but it is the experience of what Patanjali means. So, when you do these things, gradually you will come to understand what the word samadhi means. And another good use of the practice of these three aspects is there are what are called kleshas in our nature. That is, complications of our psychological nature. The human psychology is essentially complicated. Every one of us is busy in creating problems to solve. That nature will go away from us. Problem creating nature will go away. What are the major problems? There is only one major problem in us. It is called avidya in Sanskrit. It exactly means, according to my translation and my understanding, the word avidya means it is not a fact that we do not know things, but we do not know how to know them. We know everything
Within us.
but we have not known them in the way in which we are expected to know. That's why we trouble ourselves many times. We create our own problems and begin to solve them. Otherwise, we have no pride of solving a problem. For the simple pride of solving a problem, we create problems. This obstacle is because it is innate with every one of us. And it awaits us to be removed by us. There is no truth if anyone has not this with him. Everyone has it as a part of his own nature. And he is to remove it and clean his own psychological setup from it. Suppose you take rice as they are from the field. They are filled with husk outside. There is a cover to the rice. And what happens if you eat like that with the cover? You have to remove the cover, polish the rice, and then eat it. It is a natural phenomenon for rice to have a cover. You cannot complain against the Creator that He has created a cover on the rice. Suppose we question, why not the Creator create rice ready for use without cover? The answer is, he can as well do it because it is easier for him. But we have no rice. They will be eaten by every insect and animal before they reach us. Unless rice is protected by the cover, there is no formation of the rice grain at all. After the formation of the rice grain, it awaits us to be removed, and then the rice grain is to be taken. Same thing with the shell of an egg. We have to break the egg and then use it as our food. Why not the Creator create egg without a shell? He can do it, but the contents do not reach you to eat. If at all you have to eat the egg, it should have the shell. Or if some eggs were to escape from our eating, the shell should be there for the chick to form properly and become a bird. Without an eggshell, there is no formation of the bird. But once the formation of the bird is complete, the eggshell awaits to be broken. So we have our own eggshell, which protects us until we come to a certain stage of evolution. When things are ready, it awaits us to break it out and come out. You can say, automatically it will be broken in course of evolution. Beware, it is utterly false in the case of a human being. In the case of animals and plants, every step in evolution is natural and it takes place automatically. But in the case of the human fellow, there is a certain amount of evolution that takes naturally and automatically. After the fellow is made self-conscious by nature, then he will be gifted with what we call discrimination, which is not there in any animal or plant or bird or fish. And from that time onwards, nature is pleased to entrust your growth, your progress to yourself. There is no natural process of the next steps coming to you unless you make an effort and try to help nature by helping yourself. Unless you have a taste to better yourself, you have to wait and die and be born in the same state once again, and then wait and die and be born in the same state again. Let it be 100 rebirths or 1,000 rebirths, you will be in the same state of evolution. This is one of the critical points of evolution for the human fellow. And let us know what it is. Let us know where the eggshell exists, how we should break it. We are a part of this universe. We are inseparably a part of the total universe. But we are separated as a personality and as an individual. Unless we are separated, we cannot exist. Suppose the total space existed and we are not separated from space, then there is no existence of the living beings. Therefore, we are made separated from the whole space. Automatically, we fall in limitation. We are limited and we are different from the whole universe. This is what is called the eggshell. It is an essential shell without which we do not begin to exist, but it awaits us to be broken by us. Though the same both exists in the circle and out of the circle, we have cut out a part of the board for convenience. And for geometrical purposes, we consider the circle different from the rest of the board. And then we can measure the area of the circle and we can have the radius of the circle We can have the diameter of the circle and we can calculate pi. But there is nothing separate like a circle and the world. Except what we proposed. With the checklist in hand, we proposed that there be a circle here. Then we proposed let there be a radius to the circle. We proposed let there be a diameter to the circle. We proposed let there be 360 degrees around the center. Where are they before the circle is drawn? That is how we exist in creation, separate from the whole of creation. So we are limited. Our concept is a necessary limitation, and we look to everything from our own point of view, which is essentially different from the point of view of others. This is what is called the basic impediment, or avidya, not knowing how to know. It is something equivalent to what we call original sin in the Roman Catholic concept. Just as the original sin is an inevitability, the avidya is also an inevitability. But as a human being, it is your duty to cultivate the land, that is, the land of your own span of life, and see that you collect the rice as the result of your cultivation. That is the grain of fruit you collect from the universe. And it is your duty to remove the husk from the grain. Then take the pure polished rice. Then only you have your divine food or bread. So this is the concept of avidya. And that will be removed by following Kriya Yoga. There is a little something more in the first aspect, yama, to be explained, which we will do it tomorrow. Thank you.